Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we are starting a new series today. So, we're going to start the Jilted Wives Club series. This is by Bethany Lopez. We're going to dive into book one, which is called The Starter Wife. We meet Whitney Spalding, and she is currently at a group therapy session, and it is a group therapy session that her therapist told her she would benefit greatly from going to it. She felt like, if you're hearing other people's stories, it'll help you not to just complain about your ex. It'll help you kind of, I guess, give her more insight for herself, listening to other people, basically. So this one girl is talking and saying that her husband's cheated on her, even though that's how they got together. He was already married and he cheated on someone to be with her. So she has clocked out of this meeting, our girl Whitney, and she's thinking clearly her therapist got this all wrong. This is not the place for her. And so she winds up sneaking out. When she walks out, she bumps into two women, Summer and Margot. And we find out they were also going to this meeting. And after like a few seconds, they walked in, they walked out. And they've been sitting outside. Well, they've been outside of this meeting ever since. So they've just met each other. And they're telling each other that, they've had enough of this place. Let's go to Campanella's. Let's have some drinks. So being that Whitney doesn't want to be here anyway, and these women actually seem kind of cool, she decides, you know what? Why not? I'll go there. It's a place where a lot of business people go after work and stuff like that. It would have been a place that she would have definitely gone to before she quit her career as an accountant. This is definitely the type of place she would have went to. But when she got married, not too long after she had the kids, is when, I think after she had the first one, is when she quit her job. And she definitely has a lot of regret with that decision. We find out this is Margot's pickup place. Like, she's not looking for a relationship, but this is normally where she goes to find someone that she can hook up with. And Summer is, I want to say she's the youngest of the three of them. And she, of course, would like someone to spend some time with. She doesn't really want to hook up. She more so wants a relationship. But Margot's letting her know, listen, I'll let you know if they're even worth your time. So they get drinks and they're talking, and again, great vibes, right? They get along really well. And there were some guys that wanted to buy them drinks, and so they're like, okay, sure, they'll take them. And Summer makes the comment, let's make this a club. And Whitney's like, a club? Like, what would we call it? And Summer was like, we'll call it the Jilted Wives Club. And Whitney's like, well, what makes you think we're all jilted wives? And she's like, well, we were all at that therapy session. So, that group therapy. So clearly we got jilted. So they raise their glass and they toast to their first meeting as the Jilted Wives Club. I thought that was super cute. So we then switch to Luca's POV. Loving this. I love when they switch back and forth. So Luca works for his father at, I think it's an accounting firm, if I'm not mistaken. And he's at Campanella's as well. And again, this is a normal place for people that work in the office. They come to this place, have a drink, have some dinner. So he's eating with his father, and his dad is telling him, hey, you need to come to Sunday dinner because your mom keeps asking about you because you haven't been there in like a month or so. The reason he hasn't is because he's been working like super hard. So, because he's the son of the boss, you know that's going to go one or two ways. He's either going to be an entitled prick who doesn't want to work hard, or he's got to work over and beyond to try and prove his worth. He is the latter. He overworks. And so he's like, don't worry, I'll be there this Sunday. He's like, he'll probably try and wrap everything up on Saturday night. That way he can show up with no problem. So he sees these group of women, our girls, and the dad apparently knows Margot. He sees Summer. Luca does. He thinks she's cute, but when he sees Whitney, that's the one that captivates him. And so his dad made a comment saying, like, she's closer to my age than yours. And he was like, I don't care. He was intrigued. So for him, he sees a goal, he sees something he wants, he goes after it. That's just who and what he is. So when he sees her go to the restroom, he gets up and goes to the jukebox that's right next to the entryway and waits for her to come by. When she does come by, he says, which song should he play? One was called like Fade to You and some other song, right? And so she says to him, why not just play Let's Get It On so we can just cut to the chase? And he's like, I was trying to be subtle. So he says, I'm Luca. She says she's Whitney. And he asks if he could buy her a drink. And she says, I'm here with some new friends. I need to get back over there to them. And he's like, well, maybe next time. But she doesn't answer. She just walks away. Now for him, he felt the lightning bolt being close to her. He felt a little, something when he saw her from the get-go. So he definitely feels like he'll be seeing Whitney, and hopefully the next time she won't reject him. So we switch back to Whitney, and she goes over to her girls, and they're like, did that guy just try and talk to you? He is hot. And Whitney goes, he's too young. And so Margot is like, he approached you. He's an adult. He knows what he wants. And if you want to talk to him, you should talk to him, So she, of course, is like, no, that's not going to work for her. And she did very much find him attractive. But I think the fact that he appears younger, we don't know how young he is from her, but that seemed to be a little too much for her to, try and overcome. So the women have a real discussion, and it was just about how, Whitney had found herself opening up to them probably more so than she had with her own therapist. We find out she was with this guy, Marcus, for 25 years. They were married for 20. And that's the only person that's ever seen her body, right? So when she went through the cancer scare, he knows, there were some moles that she had on her that she had to have removed. So the scars from that, he knows what that is. There's a four-wheeler accident that a scar she has on her leg from that. He knows about that. She has stretch marks from pregnancy. Like, this man, Marcus, he knows her body, right? And it scares her, the idea of a new person, especially you think she's looking at it, this younger guy, seeing all of these flaws, right? Is how she views them, as flaws. And so Margot's like, listen, I've got introverted nipples, and guys take it as a challenge. Because they're always trying to make them pop out, And Whitney was like, oh my gosh, have you gotten that checked out? Because she definitely was concerned. Like, she says, that could be another issue. And Margot goes, no, I've already went to a physician about it. Everything's fine. It's more so just a preference. If I wanted to change it, I could, but it's not, there's nothing wrong with me like that, But the moral she was trying to say is, we've all got insecurities about ourselves, You're allowed to have them, but you shouldn't allow it from stop you from living. And I'm like, I like Margot. She's spitting some good wisdom to the girl. So our girl Whitney's gonna leave out because she's got an interview tomorrow. It's her first one in 17 years. She doesn't want to get drunk and have a hangover. I understand that. Whitney's really happy she found these women, and that this is going to be a weekly thing, because the friends that she had when she was married to Marcus, basically she doesn't talk to any of them anymore. When Marcus divorced her, they went away, which sucks, but it also shows you friendship wasn't that deep anyway, you know? So I'm glad she's met some what appears to be genuine people. So we switch back to Luca. He's working. He gets a phone call from his mom saying, since he knows, I'm sorry, she knows he's coming over for Sunday dinner. She's, everyone's going to be there. And she also invited his ex-girlfriend, Giada, which is weird. He broke up with this woman 8 years ago. He's telling his mom, okay, we're not getting back together, so what was the purpose in you doing this, She goes, well, I just figured, you could be friendly with her. And he's like, I can be friendly, just don't have any other expectations. So he gets off the phone with his mom, and then his dad comes in, and his dad lets him know that he's going to be surprising his mom with a trip to Italy. She's been wanting to go before the kids were born. And so he's finally going to take her next month. And this is the start of the dad starting to step back. He's not going to retire right away, but this is that starting stage of more responsibility is now going to get placed on Luca, because eventually he's the one that's supposed to take over. So he's excited and a little scared at the same time. So then his dad also dropped off some interviews from HR, and they talked about this one person with the last name Spalding who hadn't worked in 17 years. But if her reference, pans out, they want to move her into a senior position. She just needs to freshen up on a few things. And I'm like, 17 years, it's our girl. Plus, it's Spalding. When he said Spalding, I'm like, yeah, that's got to be our girl, Whitney. We switch back to our girl, Whitney. And she's making breakfast for her kids. So she's got a daughter named Stella, who's, I want to say she's 16 or 17. A son named Silas, who's about 14. And she lets them know that she did get the job and a promotion right away. They're going to bring her in as a senior associate. So she's super excited. And her kids are excited for her as well. The daughter, no, let me say this correctly. The mom would like to hang out more with the kids, but they have their own lives. They have plans. And so she had made them pancakes and stuff like that, but she's eating yogurt because once she found out about her ex cheating, or that he was leaving her for this younger woman, she started dieting. She's lost about 25 pounds. But again, here's my thing. You lose that if you feel like that's something you need to do. As long as it wasn't in competition with the new bitch, I'm cool with it. Don't ever do stuff based on other people. Just don't. It's not fulfilling for you. It can't be. Because you're doing something based on what someone else is doing. It's very empty. Is how that has always appeared to me. So the kids leave. She gets a call from the dad, Marcus. He tells her that next weekend the kids are going to have to stay with her. It's his weekend, but he's saying that he's taking his new wife, which I forget her name, it'll probably come to me later, taking the new wife to Vegas. And she doesn't want the teenagers, staying home by themselves. And Whitney's thinking, wow, what a great way to make your kids to feel like a guest in their, what's supposed to be their home as well. And he's like, you wouldn't leave them in your place alone either. And he gets all on the defense, like, I'm not trying to make a big deal out of this. And she says, you know what, whatever, fine. This is their home. They're always welcome here. And she gets off the phone with him. So he seems like a little bitch, for sure. So again, she's the starter wife, and the starter wife is the one where the man apparently he's striving to get where he wants to be in business. That's the one you have your first kids with. But then once you make it to where you want to be, you trade the starter wife in for a newer model. We switch back to Luca. It is Sunday dinner. He's got a brother named, his name is Giovanni, same as the dad's, but they call him Vanny, the brother. And the oldest is, I want to say, I think that's Vanny. He's the oldest. Then we have his sister Charlotte, and then we have our boy Luca. So Vanny's married to Sarah. Charlotte is married to Nigel. Vanny and Sarah, they've got 2 kids. And then Charlotte and Nigel, they have 1 child who's just a few months old. So even though the his mom has grandchildren, she's still always wanting more grandbabies. So you already know her inviting the ex girlfriend from high school. This is very much about her trying to see if she can get something rekindled between her son and that woman, Giada. They have dinner, and then after dinner, the dad tells the mom that he's taking her to Italy. The poor woman fainted. She could not believe it. And then they had to put cold presses on her to make her come to. And she's like, Luca, I had the greatest dream. And he goes, yeah, no, mom, it wasn't a dream. You really are going to Italy. She says, oh, no, I had a dream that you got married. And he's like, she's all right, mom. She's good. You guys, she's good if she's talking about me getting married. So we switch back to Whitney. It's her first day. The previous day, she did go and splurge on some new clothes, so she looks great. She was nervous, and she had like 3 cups of coffee. Now she's got to pee. So she's waiting for the elevator to get to the 25th floor so she can jump off. And when she gets off, who does she run into? Yes, our boy, Luca. So, of course, they're shocked. You know, he's like, Whitney? And she goes, Luca? And she asked him if he had business here, and he's like, yeah. And she's like, oh, well, her foot's moving crazy. And he asked her about getting lunch, and she was like, nah, maybe not today, or maybe a rain check. And she was like, he asked her for her number, and because she was trying to get away, she gave him the number. But I think also she wanted to give him the number too. Okay, let's just be honest. And she leaves to go tinkle, and when she comes out, she goes to HR, fills out her paperwork, and then they take her to meet the different people. The big boss, Mr. Russo, Giovanni Russo, and then they were like, can we also have his son, who's a partner, Luca Russo? And she's like, oh my gosh. So she goes in, talking with HR and him. The HR guy was busy, so he can't come to lunch, but that now means she's going to be going to lunch with Luca, and she's thinking, I'm going to be in trouble. We switch back to Luca, and while they're walking, she's clutching her purse, and he kind of felt bad because it's like he's using an excuse to get her to come out, even though she clearly rejected him twice already. But he figures after this little lunch, he'll be able to determine if, she's worth pursuing. But he calls it a business date, so it's nothing, it's just a business lunch. So he tells her about a deli, how quick they are. It's right up the street. She was like, oh, yeah, that's perfect. So they go in, they order, and he asked her, Miss Spalding, like, what made you want to jump back into the accounting field? And she wasn't expecting that. She thought he was going to say something else to her. And so she said, well, I had my daughter and then my son not too long after, and just didn't really see a reason to go back. And She said that the last time she worked, of course, it was before she had the kids and before she had gotten married, and he wanted to know how long she'd been married. She said, I was married for 20 years, but we were together for 25. We had met in high school. So she's got to be somewhere. I'm trying to think. Well, hopefully they'll just tell us her age. But she's got to be, I want to say, early 40s, I would think. She asked him if he'd ever been married. He said no. He's had some relationships, but they've never been like serious to the point to where it was like, okay, this is the person I want to be with. For him, he's seen his parents, they've been together for 42 years. So he knows he can't have the exact same relationship as his parents, but watching his siblings and things like that, he does want a true partnership with someone, and he just hasn't met somebody that he wants to marry, to have that with yet. And so she does make the comment, no one sets out to get divorced. She's like, I thought I'd found my person, and then 3 years ago, because she's been divorced for a year now, but 3 years ago, he tells her the marriage is she finds out he's cheating on her, and that he wants out of the marriage. But I'm gonna say this: unless that man was really good at hiding shit, there had to have been cracks in that relationship, and either she wasn't paying attention or she just didn't want to believe it. Like she might have been in la la land instead of looking at what was really going on. Now, I mean, he's a jerk. We can tell based on that conversation that she had with him, but I find it very hard to believe that you had a perfect life and he cheated on you. You did not see it coming. I'm not saying this shit can't happen, because it can. But a lot of times there are signs and people just choose to ignore them. And I kind of feel like that might have been what she was doing, based on how quick, like that little conversation she had with him, how snappy he was with her. He doesn't like her. Now, why would you not like? You didn't just all of a sudden stop liking me. You know what I mean? Like, that's not it. So I think, again, there were issues. She probably just didn't want to pay attention to it. It was easier for her to look at her life. For her, it was perfect, right? She was married to her husband, the person she knew, good or bad, right? And she had her kids. So for her, it was perfect. But maybe she just didn't look at it fully the way she should have. That's my prediction. I could be wrong. It could be she had a perfect life and he just snatched the rug from underneath her. I hope they give us a real breakdown of what happened with it. I am very curious. We fast forward to Thursday, and she's having her, what is it, Jilted Wives Club dinner with her new girlfriends. And she's really been looking forward to this all week. So they, of course, want to know how's the job been. She tells them it's been really cool. And we find out Summer has signed up for a dating app, and she's going to one of their events. It's like this happy hour event, and she can bring a plus one. She asked Margot to come, but Margot's like, oh no, I don't do those. That's not, because she's not looking for a relationship. And this app is like more so soulmate-y tish type finding type of person thing. So Whitney says, I'll go with you, but I'm not, I don't want to sign up for the app. And Summer's like, that's good, you don't have to. And just come with me to the event. We do get a backdrop on Summer. We find out that she was a trophy wife. So this is the second wife that you would marry. And when she met Jared, she had no idea that he was married. She says if she would have known, she would have never dated him. But he waited until she fell in love with him to tell her that he was married. And of course, he made the wife out to be a shrew, all this type of stuff. and her and Jared were only married for 4 years. And he basically came to her and was like, I want a divorce now. I don't want this anymore. She was devastated by the divorce. He was married 3 weeks later after the divorce finalized. So she wants a real relationship, right? She wants to get back out there, but she's not looking for just hookups. So Whitney's going to be her wing woman. She also told the girls that Luca is her boss's boss. Margot knows the family, but it's because she's done business with the dad. It's no bullshit. Because I was like, ooh, has that dad been fucking? But he hasn't. It's not that. It's just business. So Margot again says, listen, the way that guy was looking at you, he really wants you. I don't think he's going to just stop just because you work together or you're working for him at his I don't think that's going to stop him. You know? And so she was like, well, I didn't see him for the rest of the week, so I figured he's probably figured it's not going to be a good idea and just kind of left it alone. And her girlfriends are like, don't believe that. I don't think that's the case at all. So then our boy Luca, he is out with his friend Damon, who he grew up with, like literally down the street. They've been close their whole life. Damon is an architect, but Damon's passion is painting. So he asks Damon, have you painted anything, and he's asking him if he's going to do a show because Charlotte works at I think a gallery or something, and she's currently on maternity leave right now, but they're always trying to get him to follow his passion of painting. And he says honestly he's scared to do it. He's scared to do a show and he's not ready to like dive all the way into it yet. And Luca's like, listen, that's totally okay. Just know whenever you're ready, we're here, we'll help you. And I'm like, okay, these are real friends, genuine folks, just want their friends to be happy. And that's that. Love it. So they're eating and our boy Luca looks up and he sees these group of people and he's looking and Damon sees the blonde chick who is Summer, and so does our boy Luca, and then Luca sees Whitney, and it's a wrap. And when he says her name, Damon goes, who is Whitney? And he says it's a woman I'm interested in. So when he's like, well, I like blondes, let's go over, right? So they hurry over. They're trying to get into this separate room that they're going into. And the woman says it's invitation only. So they're talking to the woman, convincing her to let them in. So we find out someone canceled. So there's 19 men to 20 women. So she'll let Luca in. That'll make it even. And then Damon flirts with the woman and he's like, well, then, who's going to talk to you? So he's just going to charm his way in by talking to the woman who's over the event. I was like, these are too funny. So Luca walks straight towards Whitney and Summer starts smiling. And Whitney automatically knew the way she was looking that it had to be Luca. And sure enough, Luca says, Miss Spalding. Whitney is super shocked. Summer, of course, is just smiling. He introduced himself to Summer. Summer, said her name back. And then she's like, I'm rooting for you, by the way. And she walks off. So Damon is over there flirting with the woman over the event. The woman's blushing. And she says, our girl Whitney says, so you signed up for a dating app? And he's like, nope. You did? She's like, nope, I'm just here with my friend. And he's like, oh, okay. And they start this first little game where you ask the person, what vacation would you take if money was no object? So Damon's over there flirting with the event woman. The event woman blows the whistle because you're supposed to move on to the next person when that happens. Seems kind of like speed dating. And Damon winds up coming over to where Luca and Whitney are. He's very suave, very handsome, and he of course says to Whitney, "Oh my God, you're such a beautiful woman," blah 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 blah. And Luca is kind of looking at him like, "Okay, I need you to chill." And he's very upfront. He says to her, he's just messing with me because he knows I'm very much interested in you. And she's like, "Oh my God, you're interested in me?" And she felt little flutters all through her stomach. And she hasn't felt that way in a long time about anybody. I wonder if she ever even felt that way about her ex-husband, to be honest with you. She could have, but I'm just saying. And so he, says to her how he thinks she's smart, she's funny, and all these different things. And he just would like to get to know her. And he tells her we can go slow, we can casually date. Now, by this time, Damon done left child. Damon done went back in the room, flirting his little ass off. And he says, we can date casually, we can go as slow as you want. And so she decides, she goes, okay, we can do it just slow. And he says, okay, that works for me. So then he asked her the question again of where would you go on vacation if money was no object? And she's like, they've moved on from that question. He's like, but I still want to know your answer. And so she says Bali. She went when she was younger. She loved it. And she always said she'd go back. And she just hasn't made it back yet. And so then she asked him the question. And he said, anywhere with you. And she was like, nice, Mr. Russo. He winds up inviting her to brunch. He's super nervous. He comes early. And when she does come, they have really great conversation. And he talks about his family, siblings and everything. And he did make a comment, hopefully that he was talking about like with his job, with the company, how, it would be nice one day to have like his kids follow in that path of running the business. So I want to say she's about 13 years older than him. She might be at the point where she feels like she doesn't want any more kids. I don't know. But I can see that being a problem. Especially if she's got a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old. I don't know if she wants to start over. That could be an issue too. Just saying. So they were there for like 2 hours. He could have stayed all day. He was beyond happy to be there with her. So they leave. They get in the elevator. She thanks him for the invite. And he kind of moves in slowly. He kisses her. And he wanted to grab her and take her right then, but he restrained himself and he pulled back. And then she jumped on him. And they had like this super passionate kiss. He was rock hard by the time the elevator dinged. And so they walk out and she was like, call you later? And he was like, absolutely. And I'm like, oh, he's beyond gone. He likes her. He already liked her from the get-go. And so being that they get along so well, it's a wrap for him. So Whitney's having lunch with her girls. They're having sushi. She can't work the sticks for nothing. But she's telling them about what happened, how she attacked him. They were shocked, but they were happy for her. We find out that Summer talked to some guy named Ron, but it didn't work out. He felt more like a cousin. They had like a lot in common, but nothing really else besides that. Margot talked about her 20-minute orgasm. So there's a dude that she messes with, and it's just sex. It's nothing else. She doesn't even like to hear him talk. Matter of fact, she puts a gag in his mouth just so she doesn't have to hear him. But he has a curved penis, so he gives her great orgasms, so that's why she keeps him around. But she doesn't want to go out in public with them, nothing like that. He's just used for sex. So they're talking about this in Summer, and Summer starts telling her story about how there was this guy, he was so big, she told him to put his pants back on. And Whitney says, like her ex was pretty decent, but when she says the size, they're like, "Oh, you poor girl, you didn't have a good sex life. There's no way you did." So Summer says, "Well, you're not gonna have that problem with Luca because I could see his package in his jeans." And Whitney's like, "You looked," and she's like, "Yeah, you didn't." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, they're funny. I love their banter." So Whitney and Luca have been texting each other and stuff like that. It's not enough. They've gone out, different things, but it's not enough for our boy Luca. So he invites her over to his place for dinner. He's made everything from scratch. He's got a nosy neighbor who, whenever someone knocks on his door, the neighbor pops their head out. I say, oh my gosh, that's a shame. But anyway, she, of course, is so in awe that he made everything from scratch. And he just kind of explains how his mom was like, they had to learn how to cook. They're Italian, you're going to learn how to cook. Like, that's a wrap. And she made a comment about, oh my gosh, I hope when I cook for you, it'll be, pretty good. And that made him happy because that meant at least she's, future. She's looking at the future. You know, he's happy with this. We find out she still lives in the house where her and Marcus raised the kids, which I think it's a good thing for the kids. It probably really helped them with the separation, and the divorce. She says it was hard at first for them, but they're doing pretty good now. And she said something about her ex, and she said, "I'm sorry, I don't mean to talk about my ex too much." And he said, "Listen, that's a part of your life, and I want to know about you. So don't feel like you have to not talk about anything." And that made her feel comfortable, which I do feel like you kind of need to be that way. If you're going to deal with somebody and they have this massive past with someone, kind of know you're going to hear about it. Now, if they just broke up last week, run for the hills. But it's been a decent amount of time. Technically he left 3 years ago. They've been divorced for 1 year, but they've been separated for three. And we don't even know really if the relationship was good prior to that, right? So I think that's good that he's fine with her being able to talk about it because she should be able to. It was a huge part of her life. They had great conversation. She really enjoyed herself. We find out a little bit more about him. So his mom was a stay-at-home mom. She cooked everything, all meals, and so he's never had like hamburger helper, TV dinners, frozen. He's never had that stuff. Everything was always freshly made. That's just what he grew up on. And we find out her life, of course, was the opposite, you know? And after they ate, they got on the couch and they started making out. She told him she wasn't ready to take it further than making out. He told her, "It's fine. We can go as slow as you need." So they're making out. He's on top of her. It got super intense. They had to stop. And she was like, "Maybe we need to sit up, when we make out. So then when he got up off of her, she could feel his dick, and Luca feels huge. And she's like, oh gosh. Yeah, she realizes what she had do wasn't working with nothing. We fast forward a couple weeks. They've been dating, super sweet. They still haven't crossed that final threshold, but it's been going really well. And so he's been staying late a lot because he's dealing with a whole load from his father as well, because his dad's on vacation in Italy with his mom. So he's been staying late at work, and she winds up bringing him some Indian food. And he really appreciated that. It was like really nice. It's like she cared about him. She thought about him, and she wanted to do something sweet, for him. And so they're eating, and he tells her, "Listen, I don't want to scare you, but I do want to be honest with you. I really like you, and I love the time that we're spending together, and I want to make this, exclusive, just you and me. He's like, I'm not dating anybody and I don't want you to date anybody. And she said so quick, I'm not dating anybody. And he was like, good. So he's like, again, that's what I would like for us. And he's like, when you're ready, I would like to meet your kids. And she said, can I think about it? He said, take your time, as much time as you need. He was just glad she didn't say no to either question. So Whitney straightened up the house and stuff. The kids are home. They're watching a scary movie. She went up to them and she's like, hey, can I talk to you guys for a moment? And she told him about the fact that she'd been dating someone. And the son, Silas, he was like, just dating, right? And she was like, yes, it's just dating. And he's like, because, dad got married real quick, So clearly the kid's worried about her doing that as well. And she's like, no, Si, we're just dating. And her son was like, okay. Is he nice to you? And she says he is. He's very lovely. And she told him, he wants to meet you all when you're ready. And she told him, he's 13 years younger than me. And the daughter was like, is he cute? And she said, very. And the daughter says, hey, whenever you want us to meet him, just let us know. Stella has got a job. She's like, let me know so I can take off. But we're down. And that made her happy because it was like her kids saw her get screwed over and they just didn't want nobody else to do their mom dirty, And they were happy for her. So she got a good response. I was happy for her too. Luca goes to visit his parents. They've come back from Italy. And he realizes he missed them a lot. Like, he's used to being able to see his dad every day at work, coming over on the weekend to see his mom or having her call a lot, and so not having that access, he realized he really did miss them. But he was super happy that they were able to go and have that dream trip. So the parents have some big news. They bought an olive grove. There's a house on the property and it pretty much runs itself, but they would go over like once or twice a year to kind of check out everything. But it would be the Russo vacation home. And at first it kind of scared everybody because at first it was like, wait a minute, are y'all moving over there? But it's like, no, 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 this is going to be a family home and we can take vacations together, And I thought that was cool. Everyone's now super excited. They had a really great dinner. And I mean, listen, the fathers worked hard, the mothers worked real hard, and they can really enjoy the fruits of their labor, and the family can come along and enjoy it as well. It seems pretty cool to me. So it was funny. The family's talking about going to Italy during the summer, and all he could think about, Luca, was how he could easily see Whitney fitting in with his family. Whitney is out with the girls. They're happy for her that things are going, they're progressing with Luca. Summer's been on some dates, but she hasn't met anybody she wants to kiss. It's starting to get her down, It's like the woman that her ex Jared remarried, she was older. She was actually closer to his first wife's age. And Margot's like, listen, he did you a favor. He sounds like someone who was never satisfied. He's always going to want something that he doesn't have. And when you have somebody like that, you can't please him. He did you a favor by cutting you loose. You only had those 4 short years with him instead of being stuck to a man trying to please him that can never be pleased, And Whitney told her maybe take some time from the app. If it's not making you happy right now, just take some time away from it. We're here for you, Whenever you need us, we're here. And I was like, again, sweet. I love it. Shout out. I love the Jilted Wives Club. They want to be there for one another, which is the thing about friendships, even when they say with family. Some people, there's an instant connection, and clearly you can see with them it is. Honestly, I think she's still mourning her marriage to Jared, and that could be why too. So maybe she does just need a little bit more time. Poor Summer, but she seems sweet. And then Luca comes up behind Whitney and hugs her. So Whitney had invited Luca to come along to meet the girls. And Margot looked a little skeptical at first, but she got to be okay. She was like, "We're gonna go to a dessert place, which is down the street." They go in there. It's an experience, honey. There's like a dessert bar, a regular bar, and then there's like a playground for adults, like life size Jenga, different things. All these games. So Summer's like, "Let's go do Jenga." So that's where they all went. Luca had a conversation with Margot, and Margot's like, "It's getting serious." And he's like, "Yeah, it really is." He's like, "I'm only going slow because I know that's what she needs right now. And I don't want to overwhelm her. But for me, since I saw her, I've kind of been all in." And Margot goes, "Pretty good answer." And he told Margot he was nervous to meet them because they have, they're important to her. And so Summer comes over and she says, "Well, I've been on your team all along. Margot, not so much." And Margot's like, "But she's coming around. She's starting to like him. He seems genuine." That was her thing. She just wanted to make sure he was a genuine person. And Luca, of course, was like, he appreciates it. And then Whitney yelled out, "Come on, babe." And he had the biggest smile on his face. He didn't say anything. He didn't want to bring attention to it. But it was the fact that she said that. It feels so personal, so real, like this could have real legs, which is what he wants. So that was sweet. We have made it to the day. Luca is going to come over to Whitney's house and meet the children. So she's like making sure everything's, you know, squared away, clean, and she had to yell at Silas a couple times to take the trash out because he was busy playing video games. The doorbell rings. Luca comes. She can tell he's nervous. That makes her smile because it means like this is serious for him. Like he doesn't take this lightheartedly, and that makes her happy. He gives her some flowers. She had made like this charcuterie board, and he was eating from it because he was starving. He hadn't eaten anything. He told her about his parents and how the dad's gonna start stepping back and, start coming in a couple of times a month, really starting to enjoy his life with his mom. So he's happy about that. And then the kids are coming downstairs and they were like touching each other. And at first she was going to move, but then she was like, "No, I'm not going to do that. Like the kids got to get comfortable with, seeing me with someone." She's not going to like make all out in front of the kids or anything like that. But like understanding for them to understand this is somebody that's special to her. So as the kids come down, he did feel her stiffen up just a little bit, but that was it. She stayed, on him. And so the daughter Stella had a look of surprise, and then she had a genuine smile. He went and got the wine. Everyone got introduced. The kids set the dinner table. He came in there, talked with them, asked them if they played sports. Stella was like she used to do volleyball, but then she got a job, so she had to let that go. Silas does lacrosse. The food's ready. They're going to do family style, and Luca was saying how that's how his family does it, and so the kids are thinking he has children, and he's like, "No, no, 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 I don't have any kids. It's just how we are at my family's on Sundays and holidays. We have like really big meals, and we do it family style." And he was like, "Oh yeah, and by the way," he's like, "I meant to tell you as well. Parents bought an olive grove, and it's gonna be our vacation home." And Stella was like, "Oh, I always wanted to go to Italy." And Silas was like, "So if you and my mom keep going strong, you're saying we can be vacationing in Italy?" And Whitney was like, "Silas." And at the same time, Luca said, "Absolutely." So it's the next day. She's at work, and Steve, one of her coworkers, is like, "This spreadsheet I needed it 5 minutes ago," and he doesn't like her at all. We find out he's the only person in the office that doesn't like her, and she found out from someone in account payables that the reason he doesn't like her is because his nephew had applied for that position, and she got hired in for that position. So he's been pissed off at her ever since. He even made a comment when he was leaving out saying they would hire housewives or some bullcrap like that. So yeah, he's just a whole ass hater. So she finishes up with what she needs to send this guy Steve, and she goes to get some. She's gonna go get some coffee, but she gets pulled into the supply room by Luca, and he scared the shit out of her. But then he kissed her, and he told her he wanted her to stay the night because they were already gonna go out for dinner, but he was like, "I want you to stay the whole night," and clearly he was ready, and she told him that'll work. The kids, they're going to be out as well, so that's fine. So she leaves from him, and then when she comes back to her seat, Silas is sitting there. And she's like, "What are you doing here?" She's like, "Where's Stella? What's wrong?" He's like, nothing's wrong. He's like, the guys switched up what they wanted to do. They wanted to come downtown, and I needed some money. And she's like, "Oh, okay." So she gave him her card, and she told him she loved him. And then she starts thinking about, he gets up to go, and she's thinking about, now she's got to get ready. You know, she's got to shave. She's got to do all this stuff to get ready for her boo thing tonight. We switch back to Luca. He's leaving out for the day, and he winds up running into Silas on the elevator. And Silas like, "I need to talk to you." And it wasn't as friendly as he was at the house. So basically, Silas says, "Listen, my mom went through a lot, and she was crying a lot, and she thinks we don't know, but we know. And we don't want to see her go through that again." And he's like, "You seem like a nice guy, but my dad seemed like a nice guy too, but he still hurt her." He's like, "We're finally in a good place, and we don't need you, you know?" And Luca was like really understanding and sweet to him. And he said, "Listen, I understand that you went through a lot." And he says, "Me and your mom are still in the getting to know you phase. I am crazy about your mom. I have no intention of hurting her. Just please give me the opportunity to prove it to you all. You know, I want to get to know her better as well as you all." And that seemed to settle him a little bit. And then after he was gone, he got off the elevator. Um, he went back. He went to his place so he could get ready for tonight. I like that. I mean, I like the fact that the son wants to protect his mom. Like, he saw his mom go through some real shit. He doesn't want her to have to go through any unnecessary pain again. He just doesn't. And I like that Luca was thoughtful in his response to him. And I believe he's honest. You know, he appears to be very much all about Whitney, and he gave a good answer. Like Margot said, good answer. But I think he means it. I genuinely do. Our girl Whitney arrives at his place. He had stopped at a French restaurant and got like all the things that he loves so she could try them. And he has them in the oven. And so he gave her a list of what they were going to eat. And she's like, "How about we just do a couple things and then we'll come back and eat? Because this is a lot." Because all she was thinking about was like, good grief, like, if we eat all that, I'm not going to feel too sexy. But she didn't say that to him, but that's where mine went. He asked her if she wanted wine or bourbon. She said bourbon, and she brought up about her ex-husband. And she said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." He said, "Again, there's no need for you to be sorry. He was a big part of your life. It's okay, I promise." He also told her there was no expectation for tonight. He said, "I just like spending time with you." And she goes, "Oh no, we're going all the way tonight. That's happening." I say, look at her. So then they're just gonna have like the risotto dish, and they can always come back and eat the rest later. And so they go by the fireplace. He had it set up real nice, and she thanked him for it. And of course, he told her, you know, he just wanted tonight to be special. They had their risotto and their drink, And then she pointed to the bed and she goes, "Shall we?" I said, "Look at her being all bold." So then we switched back to his POV and he just did like, there was like a little slow tease. He took his stuff off. He ate her pussy. They had a nice hard fuck. And he was in heaven. That's it. He's gone. He is done for her. He's beyond done. So Whitney thought to herself, like, that was the best sex she'd ever had in her life. And so they got up, they ate some more food, heated it up, and made a little picnic. He told her about the conversation with Silas. And at first she was upset that Silas did it, but then it touched her that her kid cared enough about her, you know? And so she apologized for it. And he said, "There's no need. I understand that, where he's coming from." And he says, "I have no intention of hurting you." And I told him to just give me an opportunity, just give me a chance. He also invited her to his parentals. He told her she could bring the kids, but she's like, "Let me go first. I don't want to overwhelm them. They just met you." And he's like, "Okay, that's fine." And then he said, Silas also said something. I forgot to mention this. Silas also said that he had heard her say that she never wanted to get married again. And he goes, "Is that true?" And she said, "Honestly, I don't know." So Luca was working. He was on the phone with Damon, and he's like, "Dame, we got to get together, maybe do Top Golf." He's like, "Come to the house on Sunday." He's like, "I'm bringing Whitney for the first time. And even though she only met you for that brief moment, it'll be nice for her to see a familiar face." So Damon was down. He then gets a call from his mom, and he was like, "I was just about to call you." He tells his mom Damon's coming, and he's also going to bring the woman he's been dating. The mom is beyond ecstatic. He tells his mom, she has 2 kids, but he doesn't say her age. I'm wondering if that's going to bite him in the ass. I'm just wondering, because she might be thinking she's got small kids. You got to remember she wants more grandkids, I guess. So ugh, I don't know. We'll see. So hopefully it'll work out. Hopefully the mom won't be stinky poo to her. I hope not. So Whitney's having lunch. Well, actually, she's having like drinks and appetizers with the girls. She told him about the invite to meet the parentals. Summer is super excited. Margot is just kind of like, hopefully it'll be okay. That's kind of it. Whitney has a lot of doubts. She expresses these to the girls, saying how, "I was with Marcus. I thought I had a good guy. He lied and cheated on me, and I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop." And Margot's like, "You need to talk to him about these issues so he's aware." And she's like, "He's not asking you to get married, and have kids, but you need to let him know where your doubts are, where you are with all of it too." You know what I mean? And that way he'll understand. Summer was doing the family's gonna see how crazy he is about you and everything's gonna be okay. She's an optimist. She really is. Again, I think there might be an issue with the age. Then she tells them, "Oh yeah, and we had sex." And they were like, "What? Why didn't you lead with that?" And they were like, "We want all the details." So she lets them know everything. So it's the day of the parentals visit, is what I'm gonna call it. So Lucas is already at his parents' house because Whitney said she wanted to drive herself. She didn't want him to have to come and get her and then bring her back home. And she's nervous. She needed that time to herself. So Vanny and his wife Sarah come with their kids, and then he gets the text message from Whitney saying she's about 2 minutes out. He goes outside and waits for her to come. The dad, of course, she says to him, "Nice to meet you." She knows who he is. He tells her, "Call me Giovanni." They go meet the mom. Her name is Francesca. She wrapped her arms around her. She's like, "You can call me Franny or you can call me Ma." She's a real sweetie. She had a really good reaction. That made me go, Woo! I was glad because I was kind of scared the mom was gonna look at her and have like this look or something, but she didn't do that. So that made I was glad. Charlotte then comes in with carrying the baby in the car seat, blabbering, going, she's, ranting. She's like, I just got here. She's like, I have got to see mom's face because I have got to see this woman who's a divorcee with two kids. She's got to be a lot older than Luca. And she looks up and sees everyone there. And the mom yells, Charlotte, and Charlotte bursts into tears. Whitney stiffens up. He tells her, please don't leave. And he goes to his sister Charlotte and he tells her, you with me now. So Whitney is kind of like, oh my gosh, those were her fears. And Luca goes to Charlotte, and the mother Franny was like, I'm so sorry. She knows better. I'm going to get on her about that. And she's like, go ahead and go to the den and just wait until dinner's ready. So then Whitney hears Charlotte crying and she winds up going to where Charlotte and Luca are. And Charlotte's just saying, she didn't expect it to be this hard. Her husband traveling all the time. It's just too much. And she's like, she knows it's not an excuse, but she's overwhelmed. So Whitney came in, they talked, and she told her it was okay. Don't worry about it. She's been where she is. It's hard with the small kids. Charlotte was like, I'll make it up to you. I promise. And the way she said it was like, like long term, her and Luca would be together. And that freaked out Whitney a little bit too. So she's walking out. Damon shows up. He's here. And we find out that Charlotte used to have a crush on Damon. Probably still got one. But I'm guessing because they describe her with cheeks blushing. So I think she still got that crush on that man. So Whitney feels like she either wants to get in her car and leave, but she feels like she can't do that. The mom calls for dinner, and so she's going to go ahead and try and power through. They get through the dinner, but it's not good. The energy is off. Whitney's not talking. She's just staring at her plate. Luca's pissed off because he's like, she's not even trying to talk to the rest of the family. Damon had some funny stories which lightened the mood and stuff like that, but it, dinner was a bust. And so after they finished dinner, they hadn't even had dessert yet. He took Whitney in the room, Luca did, and he's like, "What's up? What do you want to go? Like what is it?" And she's like, "I'm sorry. I'm just in my head. After what your sister said, it just brought up a lot of stuff." And he's like, "We can talk about it." And she's like, "Well, I don't think it's appropriate time to talk about it here." And it's like, you done already fucking shut down in front of these people. You might as well talk about this shit. What's the difference? It's like she don't want to vocalize nothing. So she told him she wanted to take a pause, just take a step back, reevaluate the relationship. He was pissed, but there was nothing he could do. She said she was going to go ahead and slip out before dessert, and he's like, fine, just go. He was pissed. I do feel bad for him, but at the same time, these were discussions I feel like they should have had once they decided to date each other exclusively. I just feel like that age gap, there's an issue she has with it. You need to talk that shit out to see if it's something that you really can get past. But they've been trying to avoid them, and well, more so her than him. Well, no, he's guilty too because he wants to live in La La Land, so he guilty too. I ain't gonna just put it on her. He guilty too, but they should have had better conversations about this stuff. So yeah, that sucks. We switch back to Whitney. She's on autopilot, and we find out after her divorce, she had a lot of bouts of depression, and she would find herself sometimes just driving and tears rolling down her eyes. Her therapist had always told her to have that real conversation with Marcus, her ex husband, to get the answers she needed, but they never really talked about it, which is crazy to me. Well, she finds herself driving over to his house. The kids aren't there, they're out with Crystal. That's the name of the new wife. And she asked if they can talk. He says, okay. And then she looks at him and she says, why? And he says, why what? And she says, why did you cheat? He said, oh, we're going to need something stronger for this. So he went and got some bourbon. And he said, you and me, all we talked about were the kids. That was it. There was nothing else we talked about. We weren't anything outside of them. And he said there was no excitement in our lives. And then Crystal came along and she was in awe of me and she made me feel things. And Whitney says, but why didn't you try with me? Why wouldn't you want to make it work with me after all those years? We could have tried. And he said, do you really think it would have worked? You know? And he was like, you're saying you never would have left, even though things got stagnant. Did you not realize things were stagnant? She goes, I mean, I realized it, but I was never going to leave you. Like, I took my vow seriously. The only way was if you would have died. So he was like, so that's the only way, is if I would have died? She's like, that's how I felt about our vows. And my thing was, again, it seemed like I figured it was going to be this. In her mind, this is what the marriage was, and it was never to be left. No matter how good or bad it was, it should not be abandoned. So she didn't look through it with realistic eyes, because she didn't care about, neither one of them did really care about nurturing their actual marriage. They just function. And that doesn't work, you know? And when you meet someone and they, ignite a fire within you, you're going to go towards that goddamn flame. It might burn your ass, but you're going to go towards the flame. And so, them having this conversation, she needed it. Um, he, of course, wants to know what brought this on. She told him, I'm dating this guy. And he didn't seem too shocked, which let her know the kids probably had already told him. And he told her, I want you to be happy, you know? And she does tell him she's happier now than she ever was when they were married. So again, you knew that this one shit. Well, maybe sometimes, well, I'm going to say this. If you've never had any seasonings and then you finally have them, you don't necessarily know that you're missing out because you've never had them. So I'm not going to say that with her. I think she didn't know that it wasn't good. She just thought this was marriage. And that was it. So I don't think she had a real great example of it. And now that she has this good relationship with Luca, she's feeling all these things. She feels more for him than she did this man she was with for 25 years. It's like, oh no, this shit is definitely going to crash and burn. That's the fear. But when she left, she was so glad she had the conversation. She definitely felt a burden had been lifted. Poor Luca, he done got drunk. He at his place with Damon. Damon came over to check on him and talk some sense into him. We get a little tea and we find out that the relationship between Charlotte and her husband Nigel, it's not good. Basically, he told his sister, like, if you're not happy and if you need to get out of it, then that's what you do. Their parents don't really believe in divorce, but he's telling his sister, you're miserable. And if you can't see a way of being happy in this, then you got to get out of it. And Damon, bringing him back to his situation, Damon tells him, send her a text message, tell her you're sorry about today, you know you didn't react well, but you would like to have a conversation when she's ready. Because what our boy wanted to see in Luca was, I'm not ready for this to be over. You didn't have to act that way. It was just a whole lot of mess. So Damon sent the text, and she responded right back, that she wanted to see him tomorrow night, and she thanked him for reaching out. And I'm like, okay, we'll see how this plays out. So we switch back to Whitney, and she has called the Jilted Wives Club meeting, told them everything that happened, and we find out they were happy that she got the closure she needed from her ex-husband. And she told him her plan. She's already called Luca's parents, and she's invited them over to dinner so they can meet the kids, and she's going to talk to Luca first and apologize for everything, and then have his parents come over so that way it'll show she's serious about him, because she's decided this is what she wants. She wants to be with Luca. She wants to move forward with him. So Margot said she had to go, even though she was supposed to be off that day. Something's up with her, but I think she thinks Luca's a decent person, but Margot's got something with relationships, so she probably was, she was just ready to go ahead and get out of there. Summer, however, is going to go with her to shop to find a nice dress, sexy dress. Our boy Luca, super nervous. He's brought flowers, expensive champagne, and when he opens the door, he hears John Legend playing, candles everywhere. She's in a sexy dress, so he's thinking, okay, clearly she's not gonna break up with me. So he's happy already. They have a conversation. He apologized. He said, I'm sorry. He said, I know in my mind I had it, I wanted it to go a certain way, and when it didn't go that way, it fell apart. I didn't react correctly. I should have taken you out of there. And she told him, honestly, I don't think that would have helped anything. She said there were things that she needed to figure out, and that when she left from him, she went and talked to Marcus. He felt a little jealousy, but then she told him what the conversation was, and he felt okay. He was like, oh, okay, okay. Um, Again, she had all those fears, and then what Charlotte said, you know, it hurt, but really the big thing was, she said when she was with Marcus, she had his family. So the family she had, they weren't all loving and this and that. That just wasn't how they were. And so when she got with Marcus, his family was. They went on trips, vacations, all kind of stuff together. They really made them feel, her and her kids, her feel a part of that family. And so when Marcus left her, all of that went away. And so when she was sitting there with his family, she felt like she could be, this is a family she could be a part of. And it scared her, because she could be a part of this family and then it could be taken away again. And she didn't like the idea of that. And I get that. That makes perfect sense. I get that. But this is where you have to vocalize what's what for you, right? And so after they had that whole conversation, he told her he loved her, and she had tears in her eyes, and she told him she loved him too. So then they started kissing. They had a nice hard fuck against the wall. She yelled out as she was about to come. Kids are like, Mom, are you okay? And he was like, oh my God, the kids are here? You didn't tell me the kids were here? And she's like, I forgot. I'm sorry. So she yelled out, everything's fine. And then she goes, oh, and by the way, your parents are on their way over here. They'll be here any minute. And he was like, what? And sure enough, the doorbell rings. He was like, you go clean yourself up, and I'll get the door. So she went upstairs, got herself together, put on another dress, comes back down with her kids. And of course, the kids, the mom, Franny, she was so happy. She hugged them. They had a nice dinner. It was really sweet. It really was super sweet. And it was a good way to ease the kids into it, because it was like, they've met him, now they're meeting his parents, and then later on they can meet everybody else instead of just everything at once. So we fast forward a little time, and their relationship is good. The kids stay with Whitney. Let me say it right. When the kids stay with Whitney, he stays over there. And then when the kids go to Marcus's, they stay at Lucas's place. He's gotten really close to the kids. Um, he's cordial with Marcus and Crystal. That's about it. He still views them as the people that hurt Whitney and the kids. So he's decent with them. That's as much as we gonna get. Um, it's Sunday. The kids are finally gonna meet the rest of the family. The mom, Franny, she's so excited. You know what shocked me? I thought the mom was gonna have Franny was gonna have the issue, and she didn't have an issue at all. She embraced those kids like they're her grandkids, no problem. Super beautiful. So our girl Whitney is having a meeting with her girlfriends, Summer and Margot, and she's like, "I found love in getting sex on the regular, and now we gotta find someone for you." Talking to Summer. And Summer had brought up about Damon, but Whitney was like, "Honestly, there's something going on between Damon and Charlotte, and I don't want you falling for somebody and then get your heart broken. So we'll hold off on that." you know. And Summer's like, "Yeah, no problem." So Summer is at the place where she's ready to have kids, she's ready to settle down, she's ready for the next step. And so Summer says to both of the girls how much she loves them, how this has been the best thing for her, the Jilted Wives Club, and they have a toast to it, and that's how it ends. And so the next book that we're going to dive into next week in this series is called Trophy Wife, and this one's going to focus on Summer. So what did you all think? I loved it. I really thought it was super cute. It was nice to see like the first wife and her being friends with someone who's considered a trophy wife, which is what her, ex-husband left her for. Like, it's to see their friendship. I like it. So I'm going to do the whole series with this because I want to see what happens with everyone. I just feel like they're all intertwined and I want to see how it happens. So I really like it. I thought it was a cute read. What did you guys think? I will say though that she just irked me with her not being able to vocalize what she felt, which is crazy because it's like you would think a person going to therapy that they would vocalize things a little bit more, but I guess if you're not really ready to face stuff and it, this is what would happen. So I'm glad she had the conversation with the husband. It needed to be done. And I'm glad she made the decision. She's doing what she wants to do. And now I'm just excited to find out what happens with Summer and what happens with Margot. Let me know what you guys think. Drop down in the comment section and let me know. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have those available, and the links are going to be available down in the description section. Make sure you like and subscribe and share. And as always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.